hopefully some kids can learn from it, but just don't get caught.
Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Wednesdays is my good friend Alex Speers. Alex, what's up?
What's up, Andrew?
Did you see that JJ Redick interviewed for the Raptors job?
I know. I just saw that. That is so weird.
What is happening?
I mean, it is a good podcast.
It's a great podcast.
And if he gets it, it opens the door for one of us to eventually get a head coaching job because it'll be the first podcast to coaching pipeline. It'll be established at that point.
Wow. Someday,
L-Man.
One day, L-Man will be the coach of the Memphis Grizzlies.
That'd be awesome. We could all get on staff.
I can't wait. Yeah. Assistant coach to the L-Man. Just bebop up and down the sidelines.
There'd be a huge controversy in year one because everyone would think, oh, McKelly's the real coach. He's the one actually pulling the strings. And it would be undermining the L-Man. There would be this rift between the L-Man and McKelly. It would be fun. And this is all setting up because of JJ Redick.
Thank you, JJ, for paving the way so that we will one day be the head coaches. I think we'll all be on the staff, right? Be down.
For sure. There's so many assistant coaches these days. There's plenty of chairs.
Yeah. L-Man will be our head coach, and then we'll all just file a line behind him. I'll probably be some kind of player development coach, I would guess, just because I only care about the future. Wow, that is wild to me. It'd be even more wild if he actually got hired as the head coach of the Raptors. That'd be kind of cool. What happens to his media network?
That's true. Honestly, open up another spot for us. I'm just trying to view everything in terms of us, and there's a lot of opportunities here for Down to Dunk.
This is mostly about me.
I mean, I guess I don't know if they were the first to do it, but I mean, their hiring of Nick Nurse was kind of seen as progressive at the time because they were hiring a G League coach, and then it was so wildly successful, and then a bunch of G League coaches have gotten hired since. I don't know, a bunch. Taylor Jenkins, he was one. Mark Dagnall, obviously.
Yep.
There's probably another one in there.
I just hope this means that Jason Gallagher can become a part of Down to Dunk after his boss leaves for.
Although it would be cool. Maybe JJ just keeps doing the pod as the coach.
That might be part of the deal.
Is that tampering?
Draymond gets to do it.
That's true.
I don't know. So it's the off season. There's still a lot going on with the NBA. We have we'll talk snubs on the all defensive teams. Of course, the all NBA teams will be revealed tonight, which is cool.
Oh, cool.
So we'll know that later today. I just want to give a shout out. I've been watching a little bit of TV here and there with my wife, and we're watching this show called Jury Duty. You told me that you watched it.
I have, yes.
It's so funny. We're through like 3 episodes, and I'm just like dying at so many parts of this show. It was like surprisingly hilarious.
If you're unfamiliar, it's kind of like a hidden camera show. Everyone is an actor except one guy. One guy thinks that he's just been chosen for jury duty for this case and is just going through the process. But everyone involved is an actor except him, including James Marsden, who is a graduate of Putnam City North High School. And I was talking to my wife. I was like, if that was me in that situation, that's all I would be able to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I would just be asking about our high school.
Hey, do you know so-and-so? Hey, do you know so?
It'd be my only connection. The only thing I could think to talk about.
What was your principal like, James? Yeah, I would feel the same way. The funniest thing so far that I just could not get over was the defense's video of the occurrence that happened.
Oh, yeah.
It's the animation. I was dying. It was so funny. Go watch this show. It's a good show. It's really funny. Dort, was he snubbed, Al? Was he snubbed from the all-defensive team?
Well, I mean, according to Sam Presti, if you don't vote him, you don't know basketball. Or you don't watch it. I can't remember if you don't know it or if you don't watch it. One of those. For me, I feel like all defensive teams are the biggest example of like these are controlled by the leading media members. Like whoever they vote for is probably who is going to win, because most people don't feel confident choosing 10 people over the course of a season for their defense. Like that's really hard to do. It's hard enough to just watch enough games of all these teams just to have an actual opinion of your own. But to have that actual opinion about their defense and how it like changed over the course of the year, like you have to be really high level, both in terms of the amount of hours of basketball you watch, but also your knowledge of NBA defense. And so I think a lot of people just default to, whoever the smart guys pick, like the top guys. And so I think this is, Dort not being on this. And I actually saw a tweet. I don't know who tweeted it out. Maybe an NBA account, but they listed like the top 4 snubs, and Lu Dort wasn't even on that list. It was 4 other guys.
Josh Giddey tweeted it. You see that?
That was the one I saw.
Yeah, snub from the snub list.
Listen, man, I think this is an instance where the Thunder's like general aversion to having like the spotlight on them, on their players, actually hurts them a little bit, because the reason why guys get picked for this is because they're on the top of people's minds all the time. We need like a big Dort feature written by some prominent sports writer that delves into his whole background and all these things, all these little tricks he's learned, why he's so good at picking up offensive fouls, to really like put him on the map, because clearly he's on the map with the players. I mean, you did the Athletic survey and he was second behind Drew Holiday for who's the toughest defender in the league. Yeah. So the players clearly respect him, but he does not have that kind of widespread recognition yet, apparently. I mean, everyone knows Dort, but he always gets left behind for some of these other guys.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Andrew.
I mean, you look at the other guards so the guards that were chosen, this is a so it's positions. One, we should just do away with positions altogether with any sort of awards voting.
Well, that could actually make it harder, because for Dort to get on a team, because that will happen next year. And what I fear is that when you look at defensive metrics, they always favor big men. And it would be very easy to construct a team of like 8 centers and 2 wings or something ridiculous if you're just going by like advanced stats. So I do worry that it'll be even harder for Dort moving forward.
I think so. I think also people have to acknowledge like the point of attack defense and how important it is, even for those big men. You also look at like a guy like Herb Jones, who was awesome all year. He got 0 first team votes, 0. And Lu Dort at least got 1, and Shea got 1. Like, I'd be furious if I were a Pelicans fan. if Herb Jones had the year that he did and then got 0 first place votes, when like Tyrese Halliburton got a first team vote, I would be losing my mind if I were them. And for Dort, a lot of this is reputation. And Lu Dort had a really good year, really great end of the year, and then people will recognize it next year that he was good. Like that's just how this goes. It's always behind a little bit with these guys. So I don't know. I'm not mad. I think that Lu Dort will have his time. He is a really good defender. I mean, Marcus Smart, who won the Defensive Player of the Year award, only got 35 total points.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
It does feel like we're kind of just throwing darts. There's like a couple guys that everyone agrees on, and then after that, you're kind of just throwing darts. I think that Dort should like be involved in this conversation more. I just don't. I just don't understand how it happens. I really do think it would take like a big article, or like obviously like if Zach Lowe put him on one of his 2 teams. Yeah. I don't know if he would have definitely made it, but he would have had significantly more points than he did. And I've heard people complain about like MVP voting or whatever it is. And sometimes the idea is brought up like we should just let the players vote. And there's some reason why you wouldn't want to do that, because sometimes the players don't take it seriously and will just vote for anyone. But this is the one instance where I actually do trust the players more than, like a media member.
Yeah.
Because everyone agrees that the advanced stats for defense are not great and they fail to capture a lot of things. And yet a lot of people still use them to base their decision on these awards. I'm much more comfortable just like taking the players' words for it. Like, no, this guy sucks to play against. I do not look forward to being guarded by this guy. Like that actually resonates with me more. I know this is helping our case for Dort because he was ranked second, but I almost would prefer that.
Here's what I would prefer right now with these young players. Don't give them accolades. Let them feel.
Oh, you want to create a team of snubs?
Let them feel snubbed.
Wow, an entire snubbed roster.
Yes. Let's snub Shea off of the first team.
Wow.
Just so that they can have a little chip on their shoulder.
I mean,
I wouldn't mind it. Early success isn't always the greatest thing in the world. So
maybe the Thunder's, like I mentioned, like they're kind of aversion to having their players in the spotlight is like a reverse psychology thing where they can like build up their players in their press conference, but then they know they're not going to get as much coverage as, guys on other teams. And boom, you create the snub team.
Yeah.
Who just wants to come out and destroy everyone.
Yeah, snub team. All snub. Snub them from the snub list too. Let's let them get snubbed.
Double snub.
Feel it.
Just every snub makes you stronger.
I think it does. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and what snubs you makes you stronger. That's what they say.
They always say that.
That's what my aunt told me one time when I was a kid. What snubs you makes you stronger. Okay. Anything else on that? I think we do expect Shea to make the first team. That will be revealed later today.
Yeah, I would be kind of surprised.
It'll be a cool moment. Any playoff thoughts, Al? This has been a strange playoffs. And the Sixers winning that game last night felt strange to me. It just didn't feel natural. They hadn't, and there's the stat going around that they'd never won a game 5 on the road.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like ever.
I mean, those are my favorite moments in NBA history when something happens that you weren't expecting. And then in retrospect, it all looks normal because, like, let's say the Sixers go on to win the championship and like win a ring. In retrospect, it'll all look normal and it'll be like, well, they were a really strong team in the regular season, blah, blah, blah. They had the MVP. It'll all make sense in like 3 months. But I love those moments where at the time it just seems crazy. Like you're not believing what you're seeing. Like, because it wasn't just that they won. It was that they like kind of dominated the Celtics for that entire game. Like start to finish.
The game was over early, really.
Yeah. That was the part that was so surprising, especially coming off of that previous game, the previous couple games where like you feel like Embiid's still kind of getting back into the feel of things, and you need that another huge Harden performance. So yeah, I'm very excited. My cousin out in Philly, he got to go to he went to Game 3 and he's going to Game 6.
Wow! Shout out!
He's very pumped about that.
Wow!
But yeah, I think this has been an amazing playoffs for narratives, which I know people. That's become like a dirty word. People don't like it. We have to talk about X's and O's all the time. You can only talk about what's going on the court. But I just find it like every single series is interesting when you think ahead to like what it could mean. Like the fact that we could be experiencing the end of the Warriors dynasty. Like that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
They've been like probably the best team over the last decade. And it could all be ending right now. And it'd be ending at the hands of LeBron and the Lakers, who like just a couple of months ago, we were all worrying about like, did Pelinka wait too long? Like,
are they even going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, they're going to make the playoffs. And then to have Jokic going up against KD and the Suns and Booker, like that's been incredible. And so especially, I mean, we talked about the Suns' future last week. And if it sets up where we got like Jokic versus Embiid in a final.
Oh, I've been thinking about that all morning.
That'd be incredible. It's just like every series has like really juicy narratives that are really cool historically, like looking back through NBA, that'll really be fun storylines going forward. So I've just been loving it. Like every single series has something for me. I mean, the Heat Knicks is probably like the weak link right now.
Mm-hmm.
But assuming the Heat move on, them continuing that run, that like Cinderella run, is an awesome story as well. And
Yes.
if it was the Sixers, now you have Jimmy Butler going up against the Sixers after they let him get away.
Amazing. It's
So
amazing.
much good stuff.
Yes. Yeah. The Heat have been just perplexing to me. I just don't get it. I just don't really get it. They're 21st in net rating.
Dude, they're on a hot streak.
It's so crazy.
The funniest part is that we had his name's Wes Goldberg, right? Wes Goldberg, the Heat podcaster on Slam and Jam, that final week of the season, and we were talking about how they had this like flip flop just in the like post All-Star break, where they had gone from being one of the best defensive teams in the league to one of the worst defensive teams, but all of a sudden their offense had come alive, and it was like a question of, is this real? Like, how much do you really buy into this? And the fact that has carried through now into the playoffs. And I'm laughing because our last question to him was about Duncan Robinson, and like, have Heat fans are they just kind of, resigned to the fact that they have to give up this Duncan Robinson dream, and this is just going to be kind of like dead money going forward? And for him to come into the playoffs and play like a massive role for this team as they, after losing Tyler Hero and everything, has just been a lot of fun. And to see Kevin Love be rejuvenated, just given away by another playoff team. Who needs bigs?
That lost in the first round. That was like, kind of use a big guy. Yeah, that was it's just mind numbing. It's just so weird. Just so weird. Knicks fans have to be hating this. Just hating this.
Yeah, especially because it's close enough where if they just were playing a little bit better, you'd feel like this could easily be a 2-2 series.
Oh yeah,
going into MSG, and then you're pumped.
It should be 2-2. It should be, because of how bad the Heat played down the stretch. And they just couldn't make anything. And Bam hit that mid-range jumper, and then just all the offensive rebounds. It's just like, man, like we gotta check on your Knicks friends, because it's not good.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, the only time I guess, never mind. I'm not going to list out all the times I felt like that as a Thunder fan, because they're actually a surprising number now that I'm going through it in my head.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot.
But yeah, I'm fascinated to see what happens in Game 6 with Suns Nuggets.
Oh, I know.
Because I expect that to go to a Game 7. But man, KD and Book have to be just immaculate. I mean, Book especially has to be immaculate for them to win these games. He has to be like the greatest player in the NBA for them to win these games. And that was not the case in the last game. And so I'm excited to see if he bounces back. I had this thought while I was watching the game. Wanted to know if you had ever considered it. Landry Shamet.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he looks like Waluigi?
He definitely has certain facial qualities that are Waluigi-esque. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't have like the Waluigi nose, I don't think, but
yeah, definitely doesn't have the nose. He definitely has the chin and like I
feel like the eyebrows or something. There's something about him. I was just thinking like, that's kind of a Waluigi, and then I was trying to think, well, who would be the Wario of the NBA? And the only name I could really come up with was Stan Van Gundy, who's not a player, but I feel like he'd be a pretty good Wario.
Let's get that Photoshop going, please. Stan Van with Landry Shamet as Wario and Waluigi. Yeah.
Did you take your kids to the Mario movie?
Oh yeah, we did. Nice. We actually, my middle son had a friend who they rented out a whole theater for a birthday party, and we went.
Wow, nice.
It. And yeah, it was really fun.
That's
have you seen it?
I have not yet. No.
Okay. It's good. It's fun. Okay. What do you want to talk about now, Al? You want to talk about the lottery, which is in less than this time next week? We will sit down and talk about who is getting Wembanyama.
It's so crazy to realize that that's a week away, and how life-changing that will feel to fans of whatever team it is that jumps up.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't imagine the feeling. Any team. Because I sort of remember the LeBron lottery.
Yeah.
I mostly remember it because of the Grizzlies, the situation they
Yes.
were in, where their pick was top 1 protected, and they end up getting the second pick. Which, if that was nowadays, that would be covered like at just an insane level.
Oh
Like
my
it would be
gosh.
the biggest story, and it was a big story back then. But you just didn't have the NBA coverage that we had then. Like in the entire run up to that lottery, we would have been talking about how crazy would it be if Memphis like misses out on this, and then not only loses the chance at LeBron, but have to give up that pick.
Just give it away
in this loaded draft. So yeah, I'm super excited. I'm terrified though, because as I started going through the teams, there are so many teams that I do not want them to win.
Yeah.
So many. In fact, I would argue outside of OKC, there's only 4 teams that I would feel like good about them winning. Before I get to my list, so have the Thunder announced who's going to be on the panel, the dais?
No, I have. I'm at the point where I won't even ask because I just don't think they'll spill the beans on something like that.
Yeah, the only one I've heard was Portland has Brandon Roy, who Brandon Roy was their representative when they got the number 1 pick for Greg Oden. So that's some good luck for them. And then apparently this Spurs are sending Peter Holt Jr. or something.
Yeah,
executive.
Boring.
So I don't know. Is there any? Obviously, they sent Nick Collison.
Yeah.
Last year. You could just stick with that, but if you wanted to mix it up, is there anyone off the top of your head that you would send for the Thunder?
Tyler Nevin says Tyrese is going for Indy.
Halliburton. All defensive vote getter Tyrese Halliburton.
That's right. I mean, I think that you should send Collison again. You got such great luck.
Yeah.
Last time, but I'm trying to think who would bring about good luck for the team now.
Has anyone ever sent a mascot?
Oh no, we should not do that.
No,
we should not do that. I mean, send Poku. Honestly,
Poku.
Yeah.
What about Michael Cage?
No, not a chance.
Why not?
Not a chance. No way. No. They got to send Collison again. What would you do if they won it? Like if the Thunder won this?
Well, I already committed to moving back to OKC if they won, so I guess I would have to move.
You would have to.
But yeah, I mean, it's something that I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about because
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. But it would be. I mean, it would be next level. The fact that you would have arguably the craziest front court pairing in NBA history. I mean, there'd never be anything like it. And the fact that Wemby wants to play the 4, he doesn't want to play center, and Chet is very willing to play center, and so the fit would obviously be great. I mean, be stupid great.
Can you imagine how different the team would look night 1 compared to all of last season, where it's like, oh my gosh, we play so small, we play really fast, we've got all these guys, everybody's playing. It's like, well, now the Thunder are starting a guy who's 7'2" and 7'5",
right?
With these other guys, it would be so.
Yeah, and Giddey would be like the 3, I guess, at 6'9". Like, yeah, they would suddenly be a massive team.
Be giants.
But yeah, I can't think about it. And I listened to some pods of other teams, and man, I understand why they're doing it. But like when you're a bad team, it's so easy to kind of like convince yourself that it's going to happen.
Yeah,
and you start really daydreaming. I mean, we're barely daydreaming.
Yeah, we can't really. I mean, we can't go there. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
We'll learn. We'll know in a week from now that we're for sure picking at 12.
But but these other teams, I mean, they're really thinking about it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
wow, what would this be like? Might as like do some jersey photoshops because it could actually happen.
Yeah,
and
San Antonio, Charlotte, Portland, like all those teams have got to be like, yeah, like we could have him on our team.
And they're going. Most of them will be devastated. Absolutely
All but one of them.
All but one of them.
Oh boy.
Okay, so here's my list.
Be crazy. Yeah. Let's hear it.
This was not as easy as I thought it would be.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, so I'm going to list out the 14 lottery teams. One of them is Chicago because they could lose their pick, but they could still jump up. So I'm going to go from teams I least want to win it to teams I would most be okay with them winning it. Okay. So obvious. I mean, the number one.
It's got to be Houston.
It's got to be Houston. Not only because I don't like the Rockets, but also because of the future picks from OKC. Because if there's a scenario where they get Wemby and they actually use this space to get impactful players, like they could suddenly be a very solid to good team next year.
It's possible.
Like it's possible if Wemby is really that guy, and they bring James Harden or whoever, those picks could all of a sudden be like late lottery picks or whatever. So that's the obvious one. I think you have to go Houston.
That's number one. Yeah, that would be. I'm almost like anybody but Houston. I would feel okay.
Yes, they're in their own tier. I didn't tier these, but they're in their own tier.
They are tier one all alone. Yes, agreed.
Now, going forward, these next couple picks, I did start to think about, okay, I guess I wouldn't want him in the Western Conference over the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
So I did prioritize that somewhat. It's not perfect, but I did prioritize it somewhat. So my next choice is Dallas.
Oh.
The idea of Mark Cuban being rewarded, that doesn't sit well with me. The fact that they would probably be more bailed out by jumping up than any of these other teams, because we're a couple weeks removed from people questioning Luka's future. And if they somehow jump up, all of that washes away. All of that is fine now. And they're right back to where we were thinking about them going into last season.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't want them to get it and be rewarded. And they did that nasty tank, Andrew. And
it was gross.
Just an affront to the game of basketball. Disgusting.
You deserve Bryce Sensabaugh for doing that.
Yes, you do. Number 3, the Utah Jazz. One, because they're a you could imagine them being a semi-competitor with the Thunder in the future.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like them. I've never been like a Jazz guy. I don't know how many.
No reason to be.
Yeah. And we have that pick again, top 10 protected. So that's why I put them there.
Yep.
Number 4, I put the Pelicans, Andrew. This is mostly out of fear. I mean, if they somehow got Wemby and Zion comes back and you still have BI and Herb and all these other guys,
it's a scary team.
That's a really scary team going forward and could be a big obstacle for the Thunder's contender status in the West going forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're my 4. Now here's where I deviate a little bit, going to an Eastern Conference team. My 5th pick, Toronto. Now this is pure spite, hate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to be rewarded for this nasty season they just had. I don't want them to be rewarded for trading for Jakob Poeltl just so they could not even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I don't want any of that, Andrew.
I'm surprised I haven't heard Detroit yet.
Well, they're the very next one.
Okay.
But yeah, my hatred for the Raptors superseded Detroit. And really, if you're wondering why I hate the Raptors, if you're not familiar with their fan base, really wants Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on their team and wouldn't shut up about it for months and months and months, and then they ended up with a worse record than our team. Okay, so that's why. I want them to have to kind of like live with their decisions for at least a summer. Okay, that's what I want. Next is Detroit.
Uh-huh.
Now you could argue for them a little bit higher, but I don't know. I don't really have like a lot of hatred towards Detroit. I mean, yes, they have been one of these teams that have been tanking along with the Thunder, but I don't feel the way about them that I do about Houston. So they're kind of like in this mid-range. I wouldn't be happy about it because again, it would feel like them getting bailed out in a way that my next team, Orlando, not as much of a bailout. Like I feel like they've built a pretty good roster. It made sense.
Orlando, yeah.
But Detroit, like they need to get punished for trading for James Wiseman and playing him over Jalen Duren.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you got to pay for those sins.
They must be punished. Yeah. So most of these teams, it's either I hate them, they need to be punished, or they're going to be too good if they get Wemby. Those are the main reasons for my top 6. Number 7 is Orlando. They're kind of like right in the middle here. It'd be like whatever. Like that's a really good team. I would be very jealous. But they're also in the Eastern Conference, so I wouldn't have to think about it as much. And they're also a small market. So it's like, at least a small market got it, whatever.
Yeah.
Next is Portland, because I live here. It would be sort of nice to go watch Wemby. And I would be super interested to see how they handled that. I mean, I don't think they're going to trade Dame. Like they would keep it all together. But all of a sudden, they have like a very clear second timeline with like him and Sharp and maybe Simons, if you want to throw him in there.
Sure.
That is like way better than Golden State's second timeline. They as soon as they did decide to pivot, all of a sudden, like they have all the pieces in place to start like a new era of Blazers basketball. Yeah. Next is the Spurs. I had them pretty high up. I still don't want them to get him. They are in the West, but again, I just don't have a lot of hate towards the Spurs. And if they got him, whatever, it'd be fine. It would.
You'd be into like an OKC San Antonio battle over the next decade?
More than like him going to Houston, yeah. Him going to Houston, I would just be like mad at the Rockets every single game we played them. Whereas the Spurs, it'd be like more of a cool rivalry battle.
You could argue that it would be kind of fun to see Houston absolutely waste Wemby's first 8 years of his career before
I thought about that. I did consider that, but I just don't trust it happening enough. If I felt a little bit better about it happening, I would have.
We haven't seen this ownership group with a good team for very long. And so I just think they will find some way to screw it up.
Maybe they would, but it's too risky, Andrew.
It is risky. It is risky. Too risky. I would not supplant them from number 1, but I'm just saying that
because it's easy to forget now. But I mean, Houston, one of the biggest cities in America, like they have gotten free agents before. Yeah, they got Dwight Howard not too long ago. They got Chris Paul to want to go there. Like they are a sleeping giant, and so things could turn around very quickly there, just by nature of them being the Houston Rockets.
It could,
which is scary. Okay, so that's. That I'm cutting off a tier right there at the Spurs. These are the 4 teams that I actually want to win. Okay, Charlotte is 4th. I guess they're actually 5th because OKC is 1. So they're 5th. The Pacers, number 4. The Wizards, number 3. The Bulls. I put the Bulls as the one I would enjoy the most non-OKC.
Yeah.
Now all of these teams, except maybe Indiana, you could argue don't really deserve this. Like they've really screwed it up these last couple of years, like Charlotte, Washington, and Chicago.
Yeah, they just exist in mediocrity.
Yeah, and like Indy, you got to give them credit for making that Sabonis trade and kind of being willing to take a step back finally after so long. So you could argue that maybe they deserve it more, but I just love the idea of Wemby being in like a big market, revitalizing the Chicago Bulls. They're in the East. I don't really have to think about them. And like I don't even know how good they would be immediately. They'd probably get better, but I don't think they're like an instant contender or something with Wemby.
No.
So that's why I would put the Bulls at number 2, and of course number 1, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Andrew,
be amazing.
Any big disagreements with that list?
I'd put Detroit up a little higher.
Yeah, I could tell in your tone that
definitely.
You have some built up resentment against the Pistons.
I would also put San Antonio up higher. I mean, just like West teams. Like I almost would put like all the West teams first and then the East. Like I just
even over Toronto. You don't want the Raptors fans to be that happy?
Oh, I actually know a lot of Raptors fans that I would be okay with them being happy.
No, they secretly hate you, Andrew. They're not telling you this, but they're only being nice to you because they want you to be okay when they get SGA. That's what they want.
I just know too many Raptors people that I love and respect, so I don't really have that same animosity.
This is why you shouldn't interact with fans of other teams, because you'll find out they're normal people and you'll
We're all psychotic in some way.
Yeah, and you'll want to like be happy for them and stuff. You don't want that.
Yeah, that's a good.
Stay in a bubble.
It's a good argument. You want to take a little spin and see what happens here?
Sure. After that, I guarantee Houston's getting one.
Yeah, that seems right. Okay, here we go. Taking a spin. Oh, here we
Pacers.
go.
Hey,
okay.
that's 3 of my 4. Actually, that's 3 of my 6.
This is an amazing spin.
So this is Pacers, Spurs, Bulls, Hornets in the top 4.
Wow.
I'd be fine with all that.
Detroit and Houston falling out of the top 4 would feel like a pretty big victory.
Yes, and Portland moving back increases the chances of that pick being traded, which I think would just be more fun. That would be interesting.
Yeah, totally.
And also, never mind. I saw the Knicks logo and I got confused for a second, but no, that's the most likely scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Yeah.
And honestly, Scoot going to the Spurs would be as exciting as. I mean, it wouldn't be as exciting, but it would be up there for him.
He would help them a lot from the jump
immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, because they just need a point guard really bad. And the Bulls like randomly getting the 3rd pick, and if they would take Brandon Miller, it would just be like, I'd feel very meh about that. I'd feel so meh about that.
Yeah, I mean, like sort of, it works, but I don't know how much it changes.
Yeah,
things for them.
Yeah, and then like Charlotte at 4, like what do they do? Like really, would they really take them in Thompson?
See, I almost think the Bulls would take one of the Thompson twins. I know that like the shooting concerns are not a good fit for the Bulls at this moment.
Yeah,
but I think you just have to take the lead guard.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah, that's very interesting. Thunder at 12. If this is the draft order, who would you want there at 12?
So currently they have them drafting Cason Wallace, which I've said I like him.
Yeah.
Perfectly happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, all the names after him don't get me super excited.
Yep.
I mean, I'm already mentally prepared for them taking someone like Rayon Rupert.
Rayon.
So I would be prepared for that.
You would be prepared. Sorry.
Prepared. I mean, we've talked about Sissoko. We'll see. Somebody's gonna start moving up at some point. You know, they just put out the list for the combine.
Leonard Miller.
Like no one was talking about J-Dub as a lottery pick at this point of the cycle last year.
Not even close.
And the first time I remember hearing about him was at the combine because everyone was like, "Oh, it's so cool he's playing in the 5-on-5 games." Mm-hmm. That was like my first little nugget about him.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be someone like that who maybe they're like just a crazy athlete. Like you could see Gigi Jackson going to the combine and just putting up stupid numbers and everyone being like, "Oh my gosh, this guy has to go in the lottery."
Yeah. Gigi, not a Thunder guy.
Perhaps not. Yeah, I need
perhaps off. He's not.
Perhaps.
Not happening.
Absolutely not happening. I do like Dariq Whitehead. I did see he's getting another foot surgery.
It's not ideal.
Which generally not what you want to see. Because it's
a guy, maybe they could get him in the second round.
Yeah, or move up into like the late first. I still think someone will take him just because the names in this range aren't super inspiring. Now, your guy Kobe Buffkin obviously could be an option.
Let's go. 12. Let's go. Yeah, take him. Do it.
So there are some options. I'm really excited. This usually happens like after the combine, after the lottery. We get kind of settled into what tiers people think these guys are in.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I'll have a better idea of who realistically is going to be at 12. Because I could see Cason Wallace being a riser where he is jumping up into like the 5 to 9 range. And where it's not even... But by the time we get to the draft, there's like no chance he's going to be there at 12. I could totally see that.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got to wait. Buffkin, though, I think that'd be a big jump if Buffkin got all the way up.
I'm into it. I'm there. Yeah.
I mean, like higher than OKC.
Oh, higher than OKC? It's possible.
Higher than 12.
I'm a big Buffkin guy. He's definitely a Thunder guy for sure.
Big Buffkin.
Big Buffkin boy. Did you you see that Vecini had Leonard Miller as a somebody that he would take for the Thunder.
How are you feeling about that?
I have mixed feelings about it. I'll just be honest. I don't love everything that happened with him in the G League. I don't love the jump shot is concerning to me. He starts with his legs real close together and then he scissors them, and he's just kind of wild. But
he scissors them like to get contact.
When he jumps, his feet land. So he starts here and then he lands like this. I can't show you with my feet with this camera angle. But I don't like that. But he is athletic. I have heard some things about him that made me more excited about the possibility. Apparently, he's just like one of the fastest learners, and he is in the process of changing his jumper, right now.
Okay.
So I did like hearing that.
You also heard that he's a huge Anthony Black fan.
He loves Anthony Black.
So you like him now?
Yes. He also is just like a great character. Like the character stuff like matches with the Thunder, like very, very much so. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're giving him a look.
He's from Canada, right?
Yes, he is. His story is really good. I won't say anything about it because Vecini's going to write a piece about it. I'm pretty sure about his story. So I prefer you guys go read it on The Athletic. But I would not be disappointed with a guy like Leonard Miller. He's multi-skilled. He can handle a little bit. 12 seems rich to me, but I could talk myself into it. There's just a lot of guys that I don't like or would not want them to take in this range that much.
Well, and also the size thing. Like, if you're looking for someone who's not 6'4" or under, you're going to have to start looking backwards at like someone like Derek Lively or Sissoko or Leonard Miller, or Whitehead.
Yeah,
like a lot of those guys over 6'4" are currently mocked in like the later half of the first round.
Yeah, I think those guys make sense. Like I would prefer Leonard Miller over a lot of the guys that like are on this like Tankathon mock draft.
Yeah.
Like I would prefer him over Nick Smith and Jed Howard and Jalen Hoods-Cofino and Chris Murray and Derek Lively and Gigi Jackson and Max Lewis and all those guys. I'd prefer him over those guys for sure. There's a lot of players here that I'm not huge on. So
speaking of the draft, in Sam Vecini, did you and McKelly talk about his redraft of the 2022 NBA draft?
We haven't talked about it. Actually, I have not recorded a Down to Dunk podcast since Friday.
Oh my gosh!
Because McKelly and I didn't record Monday. I did the podcast with
the shooting coach.
Yeah, she's great. It's really fun.
So Vecini released a redraft of the 2022 NBA draft class. And Apollo was number 1. Number 2, J-Dub. Number 3, Chet. Now, first of all, I think that's a very reasonable assessment based on everything we know right now. And that is just such a huge win for this franchise. If that ends up being anywhere close to being true, like even if they were just both top 5 guys when we look back in 5 years on this draft, that's a huge deal. And then he has Jaden Ivey, Shaedon Sharpe rounding out his top 5, and then Sohan, Keegan Murray, Jabari Smith Jr., Walker Kessler, and Mathurin in his top 10. Yeah.
I mean, to get 2 guys that would be redrafted a year later by somebody who knows and watch, like Vecini not only watches draft guys, but he watches a ton of NBA basketball too. And so for somebody like him to say, hey, if I were to let me redo all of this, let's put J-Dub at 2, Chet at 3. And obviously we haven't seen Chet play. He's got to play. He's got to look good. But boy, that 12th pick I firmly believe is going to change the trajectory of the franchise for the next decade. Getting J-Dub at that spot is going to change the way that we think about the Thunder for the next decade, which is kind of wild.
And it just takes a little bit of the pressure off of this year's draft, which we talked about during the season, but also, talking about these guys now where there's no one like we're just in love with that we just like have to have that we think is going to be a game changer. Now, they could turn out to be that. But yeah, I just feel like so relaxed going into this draft process, mostly because of the J-Dub pick.
Yeah. Yeah, the J-Dub pick and the fact that they have Chet coming back. I mean, honestly, if they didn't even have a pick, I think the excitement level wouldn't be all that different.
Well, because we always talked about at the beginning of this is, you do this to just get a lot of shots. Is it called getting shots at the apple?
No, bites. You don't shoot an apple.
Bites at the apple.
I guess you could shoot an apple.
Well, in my head, I was thinking like when they put an apple on someone's head and like bow and arrow it off or shoot it off.
You don't want too many shots at that apple. That is
true. A lot of bites at the apple, knowing that some of those bites are going to be bad. You just can't hit 100%.
No,
and so
you can't.
When you can bank a good pick, and you just already know, like we nailed that one.
Yeah.
Like, even if he doesn't turn into an All NBA guy, like we nailed whatever he's going to become. That's awesome. It just makes you feel really great. I just feel really great right now about the future of this team, regardless of what happens in this draft.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the kind of energy that is going to get us the number one pick. Because we're so relaxed. We're not begging for it. We're being cool about it. We're acting like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Yeah. Everything's still fine.
We're expecting it to not happen.
I think that's great energy to have right now.
Yeah.
Can only work in our favor.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah,
until we fall to like 14th. Two teams behind us jump us.
That would be wild. I'd be okay with that. I like the guys at 14 as much as I like.
Oh my god, no! Now you're going too far.
I'm way too relaxed. They could just give this pick away to charity. I'd be fine,
Charity's like, what am I supposed to do with this?
No, you just get to have this guy. He's
just like your spokesman now for your charity. He's like, man, I really wanted to play basketball, but I guess I'll be their spokesman.
Well, Rayon Rupert was going to play in the NBA, but now he's working for the Red Cross. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Yeah, I'm fine. I think that I honestly just like trust Sam and his people to make the right pick in this range. And honestly, I think there's a good chance that I'll say this, they're going to try to trade up. Like that's just gonna happen because I think they try to do that every year, or at least they look at what the options are.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I can confidently say that they look at every option, whether that be trade up, trade down, trade out, whatever. They look at every single option. And you just have to think in a draft like this, with the average age of your team being so young, that if there's somebody in that 5 to 10 range that they really like, that they would trade up to get that person if that pick is available, whether it be like with Washington or somebody that's because like the 8th pick, like if Washington ends up with the 8th pick, that's not changing their world. What they probably need is just like a bunch of assets to go make some trades if they're actually going to like get better in the near term, because a Cam Whitmore or Grady Dick is not going to make them that much better next year.
True. Yeah, there's a few teams where if they jumped up to like 4, let's say, I think they would have a decision to make. Like Dallas is an obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to go into next season needing a huge bounce back, and you're going to be counting on like some 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid to like immediately come in and be able to mesh with Luka instantly.
Yeah,
I think that's an obvious. The Portland is clearly going to be one.
Yes,
that will move. Washington currently at 8. That makes sense. And then I don't know if New Orleans jumped up to like 4, they're in a similar position where like they have to make the playoffs next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this season was a huge disappointment. And do you really want to add another 19-year-old to that roster. Now I would say, yeah, sure, why not? But maybe they feel a little bit more pressure. Like, could we use this to get a guy who could definitely help us next year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because and also just like the players after 3 are just deeply flawed in one way or another.
I'm kind of interested in the Thompson twins, not necessarily for the Thunder, but just how they are being perceived.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of things about them when you read about them and when you watch them where it seems like if they had just not played in OTE,
yeah,
how would we be talking about them? Like, how much is the fact that they played OTE weighing down how we think about them? If those guys had just gone to college, I mean, would we be talking about like Amen being a potential like number 2 pick in this draft?
It's possible. Even
because
if
I just can't
the Ignite or something.
I just can't get over the fact that people keep saying like Amen Thompson's like a top 1% athlete in the NBA. Will come in next year and be like a top 1% athlete, like incredible passer, like incredible playmaker, has just an awesome frame, like is built and ready for the NBA. And then people are saying like, I just don't know. Like that guy in any other year, if he was coming out of like college or whatever, would be an obvious like top 2 or 3 pick.
Yeah.
And this year it just feels weird, and it feels like it's only weird because of OTE.
I think the shooting too. It's not just OTE. It's just the shooting overall.
But Scoot's shooting is a huge concern as well.
Not as much. Like not even they're on different planets of concern.
Different shooting planets?
Yeah. It's like, can you be a lead guard in the NBA right now and just not be someone that can shoot it? It's just really tough. It's just really, really tough. It's hard to be anybody in the league that's making a big impact where you can't shoot it. I mean, it's a big concern. Like Vicini talks about it a lot, that he just has a hard time believing that they're going to be like actual shooters, either one of them at the NBA level. So it just makes it, boy, that's super concerning. Yeah, much different than Scoot. Like Scoot, I watched him play like a couple G League games in person even. And like the shot's not great and he didn't shoot it great, but it's not at the same level as the Thompson twins. It's a valid concern, I would say.
But like, I don't think it should be a valid concern for Houston, for instance. I mean, if you think that Jabari Smith Jr., if you think Jalen Green are the shooters that they're supposed to be, then I don't know.
Yeah. I think they would be particularly difficult to fit in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Especially
yeah, this is not a conversation about OKC for me.
Yeah. I would be so intrigued, though, to see them, just because they do bring so much else, like great rebounders.
Yeah, same with like Orlando. Like they've gotten away with it with Markelle Fultz for a couple years now and been really good when he's on the court. Like, could they survive with one of them? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, somebody's going to get, I mean, and the character stuff with them is apparently just like spotless as well.
Yeah.
So, like, they have that going for them, which is very helpful.
I just feel like the Spurs are going to fall in this draft. They're going to end up drafting Amen Thompson. And in like a couple of years, it will be like, oh, that was stupid.
Yeah.
That was very stupid by all of us.
They're totally, they've got the best player in the draft somehow.
Yeah.
Does the injury stuff concern you at all about Wemby?
Is it it's just the idea of his body not being
he's had some injuries, but
he hasn't had like major injuries, right?
Nothing crazy, but yeah.
I mean, it's kind of it's similar to the way we talked about Chet last year. Now, of course, Chet ended up having a pretty significant injury. But before that, he hadn't really been injured in any significant way. It was more just look at that frame, look back at the history of NBA bigs who are that tall. Eventually, they usually have injuries. That's basically the argument. So I don't know. I mean, last year I was like, I don't care at all about this potential for Chet. I would still take him number one. And then, of course, it immediately was brought to my attention that he had an injury, which was a huge bummer. So it's something you have to consider, but you're not going to not take Wemby.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're seeing it now, like with the Sixers with Embiid. It's like, yeah, we'll take Embiid.
Yeah, for sure. And you can think back to Greg Oden. Like, they knew all that stuff about Greg Oden, and yet pretty much everyone across the board had Oden ranked ahead of Durant.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I can only remember Bill Simmons as being the person who was like so pro Durant that they would actually take him over Oden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was him, and there's somebody else. Ben Golliver was a Blazers fan, and he really wanted Durant because he's like was writing for Blazers Edge, or I think he started at Blazers Edge back in the day. And Ben was like very much like they need to draft Kevin Durant. You know, that was like at the very beginning of his writing career. Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, like Scoot or Amen Thompson or Brandon Miller could end up being like the real like crown jewel of this draft. Like we just don't know. You know, I think it's or Wembanyama could just end up changing the entire NBA. You know, it's
I mean, he's one of those guys where if it all pans out, it's not like he changes the NBA in the sense that, oh, we have to go get a Wembanyama because like he's a one of one, but just where he similar to Steph and similar to LeBron, where they just are players that break the game in some way, and you just have to learn to live with it. I mean, that's basically what we do now with Steph. Where the game is just broken, like he's going to hit an absurd amount of threes that no one else can hit. The level of difficulty, you just have to live with it. The game is broken for him. You have to find out a way to win some other way. Yeah, and that could be how it turns out with Wemby.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. All right. Anything else before we go, Al?
No.
Hope you guys have an awesome rest of your Wednesday. We'll have a podcast for you guys on Friday. And man, I can't believe that in a week we'll know the what happened in the lottery. It's going to be so exciting. If something crazy happens on lottery night, we will obviously go live and talk for hours about the possibilities here. But otherwise, we'll just talk next Wednesday, you and I. So
yeah, if they got like 3, I think that would be the most interesting, or even 4, where that like Brandon Miller, if a team jumps to 2, where it's like clearly a fit for Brandon Miller, and OKC is at like 3 or 4, like what do they do in that scenario? What would you do in that scenario? I don't know yet. I don't know yet how it would feel.
Yeah, I just did a spin where the Thunder jumped up to 3, and it was Wembanyama to the Wizards. The Pacers are 2, and they have them drafting Brandon Miller.
That would be super interesting because I don't know what the Thunder would do. I'd be tempted to just default to Scoot.
Yeah.
Because of the level of talent and the way people talk about him historically, like the fact that he would go number 1 last year or something. But it would be a really fun conversation to have for a month.
Yeah. Oh, it would be amazing. I would take Scoot 100%. 100%. And then you just figure it out. But it would be cool. Okay. You guys have a great day. We'll talk to you guys again on Friday.